Moving into warp speed now, Sevan Bomar of Resistance2010.com is joining us. You've heard of 1111, you've heard of the number 13, you've heard of 666, and many, many other numbers that numerologists and Kabbalists and Freemasons and even just researchers have discussed on this show. But have you heard about the number 26 and its connection to the Matrix Cube, Obama, and the lighting war, and the real pole shift, and the God they trust? Quite possibly. Maybe you have, maybe not. We'll see, but Sevan Bomar is going to enlighten us all on the subject matter. Sevan, welcome back.
I love that intro.
Ah, thank you, sir.
I was just jamming over here.
Nice. I borrowed that from the soundtrack of Sin City.
Okay. You knew how to get that soundbite just right. Of course, I'm super excited to be here. I just, came back from the ocean area, and man, it's just things have been shaken up. A lot of information is coming forth. It's definitely some things that we have to do, and it's just activated human time. I'm just glad to be amongst you.
Well, in this day and age, it's a shame that I have to ask this, but you say shaking up. What do you mean by that? Do you mean physically? Because there's been a lot of earthquake activity down there.
Oh, yeah, there was definitely a 7.6 here, and it was very interesting because Costa Rica really absorbed the earthquake, and it didn't really cause that much damage. And, it's just, I know there's something big going on. It's just when earthquakes happen, so much energy is released from the center of the earth, and then it comes to the surface. And then, of course, how that kind of happens in an individual, it's like old things are unseated and they have the opportunity to benefit from that energy again. So I'm excited.
Well, I've always wondered if we had a global catastrophe of some sort that caused major tidal waves and tsunamis, if there wouldn't be any structures revealed, maybe even the lost city of Atlantis, if there was a huge physical pole shift.
Oh, for sure. Outside of Japan, there's a pyramid right underneath the water. And what they say is that when the world goes through, any of those kind of pole shifts that are actually being controlled now by HARP, by the way, but when the world goes through any of those kind of pole shifts, the water from there recedes. The people look to those pyramids, study the geometry between those pyramids, and that begins the quote unquote religions again. So yeah, these pyramids are all over the world. Many of them are so deep underwater that if that area happens to come above ground, of course, the people that are living then are going to be attracted and curious about what are these pyramids.
There's one at the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle that they recently discovered, and they've taken pictures of it, and it looks like it's made of glass.
Yeah, definitely some heavy levels of Lemurian technology laying around.
Yep. And Jesus said, I'll be with you until the end of the age. Some translations say till the end of time, some say till the end of the world, but if you go to the original, it says to the end of the age. Are we experiencing the end of the age now?
Yes, it is. And now people have to realize that they're really the Jesus, they're really the Christ, because there's nothing outside of self. And so all the people who are waiting, this is where the door is. This is, that's why people see 1111 a lot, because that means four. It means a door, or Daleth in Kabbalah. And that door is upon us. So when you go through that door, you're no longer seeing the separateness of God. You actually becoming what your parents designed for you to be.
Ah. I do notice that when I'm on the spiritual path, I do see 1111 everywhere. And when I don't see it, it's kind of a cue to me now that I'm doing something wrong and I need to refocus my energy.
It's definitely a synchronization tool. It's there's a lot to really say about 1111 because it's 22, and of course it's a master number. And as you keep pulling apart and then putting back together these numbers, you really do come up with some interesting stuff. Like if we are even ready to launch right into this, if we're going to talk about the number 26, people have to realize that the language that we're using, English, has 26 characters, and that there's even the Old Testament God has a name that is equivalent to that number. And it's already been the knowledge of those in the know that that name is the name that was spoken in the beginning of the world. But it equals so much more. And that's why so many individuals have attempted to grasp it, and it's become like a Hellraiser cube to them. But we're also not only trying to manipulate one, we're actually living in one too. And, we call these matrices, we call these wombs. This is what's known as just how to actually really crack the code to a cube so that you can emancipate yourself from the incubation. Everyone knows now that Earth is very similar to an egg, and that we're here to actually grow our spirit, and then we birth from here. There's many things, just like if you ever wonder where you're at as a child, when you see a child inside of the womb, if you wonder, what is that child thinking about? I tell you, we've actually discovered that the child is seeing all of its subsequent lives and actually running all of its subsequent lives there. So this is why it's so important for even our children to really be receiving the benefits of the knowledge that we're receiving now, because in essence, we're definitely living through them. Like it's just a massive thing that we're talking about. And that's really what it is. It's mass. And so we have a certain group of people who know about this kind of stuff and how to manipulate it. As you see, what they publish is there with CERN and with the Hadron Collider, and they want to find dark matter, etc. But, that's like giving everyone the microwave. That was something the military was using 50, 60, 100 years ago or whatever. So the reality is that humanity does have the same ability to manifest, of course, but what are we manifesting? Are we manifesting something that they want, or are we manifesting something that we all need? And so this is where, to tell you the truth, I'm glad to be on True Frequency Radio again, because the buck stops, as the dollar bill, the buck stops literally here, meaning that we have to understand what is going on, because we're using the money every day, we're using the language every day. And we have to understand that a world is not as simple, or Earth is not as simple as politics and TV and MK Ultra. Earth has an organic system that's been running for billions of years of, super sentient beings. So this means right away we need to get ourselves in tune. And in order just to get more out of this, I'm not here to deliver people a message, because they're coming to, it's kind of hard to tell an immortal being they're coming to kill you. You see, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, the spirit is impenetrable. So what we live with is this fear of loss. And, today I also want to, instead of getting so much into the occult side of things, start talking about how to move things out of the way, like remorse. Because these are things that, the universe has certain laws that it works with. So if someone teaches us to hate another group of beings or individuals, the only way that the universe sees that is that you're actually hating yourself. It does like a simple calculation, and then it keeps going on in its processing. It knows that you still need to learn that all is self. You are everything in this. And then when you can realize that, it's almost like you don't face an opponent anymore. Then you start going into work, like really, when you accept the mission, having the power that is attached to the mission that you're put on. And this is also, as those in the circles of money, understand that the key to money is to have the idea of what you're going to do and how much you need to do it with before you start desiring the money. And so it's the same thing with our current. If a person wants spiritual powers, they have to actually set in their mind a mission that needs those powers in order to be accomplished. Of course, inside the cube, because there's limitations. Let me show you just with the number 26. I'll read this right from the document here.
Okay, Sevan, before you do that, we're getting a lot of echo on your end. I'm not
really?
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything you can do about that. It sounds like you're in a big tin room.
Okay, let me see if I can switch mics, but what I am in is, this room needs some sounding proof or something.
Yeah, we've got this studio foam going on over here. But
okay, can you hear me better now, or should I just switch into another room?
No, actually, that sounds a lot better.
Okay.
Still a little bit of an echo, but maybe at the break you can switch to another room.
Okay. So, so where are we at? I mean,
take us away. You were going to read from the...
oh, yeah. Let me just read from this real quick so people can get just a really deep idea that's sound and rooted about where they are so they can grow from here. Let's just say specifically what a matrix is. Now, the number 26... it says the number of vertices or points is 8. lines, 12 faces, and 6 on the octahedron cube. This is what gives us the number 26. So a cube is a symbol of the physical plane. Now, the reason why people often don't like cubes when they get spiritual is because spiritual is internal. So everything that corresponds to the internal world is a sphere. There's no straight lines in the internal world. Like, look in your body. Can you find one straight line? Even when you close your eyes, you never can really make a perfect straight line, nor have you seen a perfect straight line. People just think they have. The external world is the straight lines. The internal world is the curve. So how this works in the external worlds is that this mathematics of 26 is its limitations. But because the beings that are here don't even have numbers, they can really have the potential to make this cube limitless.
Let me jump in for just a second. I'm looking at my hand here, and I've got the vein coming from my wrist going to the elbow. I mean, it's not extending all the way, of course, but I can see it right at my wrist. That looks pretty straight.
Well, it's not a straight line. Like if you can take a corner edge of a piece of paper and you look at that, and then you look at that line that you're saying is a line, and you'll see it's humped. It's like it's still humped, no matter especially if you get it under a microscope, you'll see all these different curves. So in essence, it's not a straight line.
That is true. Now that I'm looking at it really, really close, it does have a slight curve to it.
Yeah, that's why even on one of the movies, the guy says, "Oh, land there," because God doesn't build in straight lines. So they knew that it was some type of landing zone for extraterrestrials. So what happens here is that here's a simple way to find this out. Close your eyes. You definitely don't see any straight lines. Now open them. Now you see windows. You see your computer screen. You see cabinet. You see drawers. Everything is cut in straight lines. And the reason for this is because in this dimension in particular, how it actually is made is based on this kind of perfect construct. And so instead of getting into that, I want to let people know that what the number 26 means is weight, heavy, mighty, abundant. And I just want to say those words because notice how if there's an abundance here, there's continuous people. Obviously, the souls here are the most valuable thing. So there's continuous souls coming into the world all the time. So now pull back and just imagine yourself as a super sentient being. And you own a planet that is generating souls. Or you have access to a planet that is generating souls. So this is how Earth is looked at. There's always babies coming here. There's always fruit. There's always growth. Okay? Now what happens in this, though, is it becomes heavy. How much does Earth weigh? People need to think about that. Like, how heavy really are we with these huge mountains and all this stuff? So also what that means on a spiritual and a vibration on a frequency level is that there's a high density here. And so we have to, again, see this cube as more like clay. And that if we don't have the strength to mold it, then basically we end up getting stuck in it. And that's what we're talking about today on how to free people from the madness of being inside of this system with others who are mastering the cube and deliberately holding that information back from the masses.
That you raise an interesting point, and I love having you on the show because you get the wheels turning in my mind. Does Earth really have a weight? I mean, how do you measure weight? Weight is the measure of gravity. So if you're outside in space, would Earth actually have a weight?
Exactly, and so that's why you probably can see it. You could probably lift Earth just like if you were in a pool. You can lift someone with your finger.
Exactly.
So this is also how we now have to understand how great and mighty we are sometimes, but how still on the outside of this, there's another set of rules. And I actually have a show coming up, of course, tomorrow, and the title of it is Hidden Words and Hidden Worlds, because it's like time out for this. We see there's a lot going on. And even with the sheer potential of what we've already discovered with Tesla and many of the things, I mean, the stars, the missions, DMT, all of these different things, when you put it all in one pot, and then you say, well, what did the super industrial complex do with this information? Because we know they have it. So, and this is where we start getting into, okay, I'm just missing out on the mega adventure. And this is how we're being trained in our society, is that we get benched while certain elite continuously breach into the next stages of their development.
Before we get too far off topic, where can people tune into the show and what time?
People can definitely tune into the show tomorrow at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time on esotericradio.com. We'll be there. It'll be streaming live.
Excellent, excellent. Because I know a lot of our listeners would be real interested in tuning into that.
Oh, man, awesome, awesome. Yeah, I love to just continue to share traffic with you. I definitely send people this way all the time. And these two networks, of Resistance and Truth Frequency, is definitely on the same frequency. In fact, I have a high-grade frequency generator right now in the background pushing out 528, baby.
Nice.
Wow.
Maybe have to do with that echo thing going on. But, yeah, I have accumulated some equipment over time, and we can definitely push out that frequency. And, so people are also getting that through the radio waves, because radio is, of course, a carrier of 528. And so, yeah.
Nice. On our banner, we actually put 528 hertz at 1.6180339.
Sir.
Yeah. Just give the people who know something to look out and go, oh, wait a minute, I recognize that.
For sure, for sure.
And then the rest of them can go, aha, they're Freemason, satanic, Luciferian, worshipping, whatever.
Yeah, that's the knowledge then, right? Just because it's they say it's their knowledge, then all of a sudden nobody can read it. This is the last move of stupidity. It's like universal knowledge is the knowledge of the universe. You should be able to find it in plants and things too, but it would help if we could get the books that someone already did the work and figured all this out for us. Here's another thing I wanted to bring up now. Notice how if you keep going back, like I said, just something very simple for people. If you keep going back to your grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, you eventually get back to a village. If you keep going back, you'll go through different segments of time, but it'll get less people, less people, less people. This had to happen. People need to understand there had to be some one original being. What was going on with that one original being? And I tell you the truth, I've traced that back through the language, and that's why I tell people to get so much involved with the language, because it'll give you your history. But that one being in beginning, once creating more of itself, because even we do that when we have babies, we create another one of ourselves with mixture of our feminine component. So they did the same thing, and they took care of those first beings just like we take care of our children now. But the one key that we're missing is they talked to them, though. What language were they using? Because there was an experiment done by putting a child into a cave a long time ago by one of the Caesars. And they wanted to see what was going to be the first language that the child naturally developed.
Seven, before we get too far into that, let's take the quick bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back right here on Truth Frequency, and we'll talk about the language that was communicated to the first beings right here on Truth Frequency. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, Seven of Resistance2010.com. And we're discussing the first beings on this earth and the language which was communicated to them. And you didn't go too far into it yet, Seven, but I'm guessing it was some type of frequency.
Well, okay, I got to get your playlist, first of all.
Okay.
Because I just be jamming over here when you come back on the show. I'm like, man, he's got the tunes.
Nice. That's a Bionic Commando remix by Rusko. Dubstep.
Nice.
Yeah. You can find it on YouTube.
I'm writing that down. Okay, so check this out. Yeah, I mean, just to let everyone know, like, this is really heavily researched. I tell people that this is not something that we're just coming up with. This has already been at least 3 to 4 years in the making. And, there's 6,000 people on the network now, and many of those individuals have been through different parts of the spiritual path. So this is the information that has been collected overall, and it definitely resonates true because it's been tried and tested. There is, of course, a way in and out. Some people are always looking for a way out. No, it's an incorrect thought. But there is a way in and out of matrices, yes. And we want now that, because people are going to start having more access to that anyway, for them to understand how to be acclimated in that world. Because let me just explain it from a very simple nature. When the baby first gets here, it doesn't really know anything about this world. It has to be taught that over a period of time. Right? So it's the same thing when you birth from this body, you go into definitely a less dense body, an ethereal body. And there, it's because you just birthed, if it's your first time going there, you have to now learn how to deal with the spiritual world. So this basically means you become a baby again, to keep, to actually put yourself in a position where you keep incarnating on your feet rather than falling all the time. Then you have to learn some kind of universal knowledge that no matter what, this knowledge is with you and continues to guide you because it's truth. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't need anyone to prove it. It's what it is. And if a person anchors themselves to it, they can withstand any solar storm. So we can get some truth going on here today and erase a lot of the misconceptions about, especially the symbolism. You can imagine the most powerful symbolism anyway is going to be snatched, according to the world we're living in now, by the darker forces who want to continue to keep people ignorant. Because the dark means ignorance. It means what you don't know about, what you have not discovered. And that's their whole thing, to keep everyone in that state. Okay? So here's one of the symbols, the pentagram. Now, the pentagram is 5. The pentagram was used to actually navigate the stars. Because if you could navigate the stars, not only could you sail the sea, which was the only ocean, especially for the people who had that knowledge, that they came from the sea. They lived on the sea like we live on land, like pirates. Then you get pi. And there's definitely a relationship between pi and phi. Everyone knows that. Some people say, are you talking about pi or phi? You look at all the physics and the mathematics, and they'll show you how they're interrelated. So instead of us going through all of the different breakdowns of the quotients, we could just say, okay, yeah, both of them are tied in somehow. And just keep moving through it. So with this pentagram, that's why when they say the pen is more powerful than the sword, my lord, this is the heaviest level of occult speech. The pen is the pentagram, is more powerful than the sword. The sword is the S word. My lord, the Lord is, of course, the one who's supposed to be the Lord of the land, like Jesus is supposed to be a Lord. Now, of course, they have lords over in Britain right now because all of these words come from them. So let me read you something else. One little small paragraph. The last conquest of the British Isles took place in 1066 by the Normans after the Battle of Hastings. It was almost the same time that the Vikings from Scandinavia landed on the northeastern coast of America. The Normans were also Vikings who had conquered a part of France, Normandy, a few centuries before. These conquerors had given up their own Teutonic tongue and had accepted the French language. This is why they later on became known as Merovingians, right? Now they speak French now. Now they carry French into the British Isles and transform pure Anglo-Saxon into a mixed language, half Germanic, half Roman, into English. And there English is born. But not by people who don't know about the occult. So this means they're not building the language just on grunts of monkeys and I want food and stuff like that. Oh, trees and screaming and all this. This is not how they were building a language. They're building a language based on the building blocks of the matrix. So this is why we are at an extreme disadvantage if we don't even know this. We're locked in. And so what I said is, okay, now we know the cube is also related to almost like a machine. So what happened is this machine basically spit out your every desire. This was something that you could literally think what you want and it would deliver it back to you. Like a stove that you think you type in what you want to eat and then you open up the door and right there it's out. This is the kind of manifestation power Earth was containing. So what happens if we lose the codes? And we're inside of this machine that we're having continuously manifest stuff for us, but we forget the code of how to kind of log out of it. So this is also the deeper part, because I don't want people to think it's a machine like it's just an inorganic thing, because by all means, the life I'm living is real. People would say, well, which one is really real? Well, are you real? If you really believe in yourself, then you're real. That's what determines it, not the reality that you're standing on and what you see. See, most people, they use their eyes to determine what is real. But of course, if we put a bottle here and we put a cap on top of it, there's air inside. We can't see that. If I put a drop on the water on your desk that's full of bacteria and we look at it under a microscope, you can see all sorts of stuff that just look like clear water to your eyes at first. So this means, why are we using the eyes to judge what's here? They've never been very adequate to do that. They're not really for that. So now we have to expand into this higher level of frequency of understanding what's already been here. Now, what has already been here? Everything. Where is here? Inside of you. Inside of you is everything. What we're doing, because our bodies are configured like a tesseract or a cross, is we're the vehicles or gates that they're using to bring things or unpack things into this three-dimensional dimension. Let me make it more simple. Because we are gates, we're configured as phi, the bone structure. That's what Leonardo da Vinci was showing everyone. We're configured as phi. This is the geometry that was used to create our physical body or our vessel. So this means that because we are gates, what we choose to bring out, or what they choose to teach us to bring out, this is what we have to live here with. So thus, what is in the dimension a lot of times are beings that haven't even been instructed on how to be around humans like us. So this is now why humans have to be equipped to understand how to withstand this. Overall, I believe, of course, that this is no more than another training module from our parents to continuously equip us to become more advanced beings. Obviously, if we're not running around here like dogs and alligators, there's something different about us. Now, let's talk about this language now. This first language, now notice how, according to the Talmud, you see that when man was created, then he had the responsibility of naming the animals. This is how it's written. But in Hebrew, what they actually are saying is now man is in possession of this language, and whatever he says comes to pass. So he says giraffe, but in that day, of course, it was a different word, and then up pops a giraffe. This is possible when you're in a field of pure manifestation, not chemtrails, a lockdown chakra center, false detachment or Scythian detachment from your mother or the planet. We're not with all of those preconceived MK Ultra notions going on. Before all that took place, the beings that were here could speak things, and in the field in which they were speaking to, it was really fertile. Now let me explain fertility in the field around you. When you speak, of course, audio is an intrusion. It goes out. It pokes, basically. So that's why everything about this world has a sexual nature to it. So when you speak something into an environment that doesn't have a fertile energy, it has a hard time manifesting. Just as if a man just to put his semen in the infertile womb, there will be no child. This is why most religions lock up everyone understanding the real dynamics of what the Most High or what God really is, because they shy away from explaining the cooties. I mean, the birds and the bees that give everyone the cooties. So now what's happening is that our energies of our economies, our money, our currency of our economies all over the world are suffering because the people are actually bottled up in their energy too, inside. So of course, what this means is that once people free their energy from inside, all of these economies will be able to boost and go into the next level of our existence. A lot of people see the end, but I'm telling you, the beginning is near. Like what this is about is that it comes down to when you become adult or adept. Notice we've been living in a Santa Claus-like society where God is like our father and we have no real responsibilities. We can always count on him. Right now, if something's going on in your area, can you say, hey, man, come over here and pick me and my wife up in a jet because I need to get out of here, something. So how much control do you really have? Who is protecting you?
Right.
And that's why now we can get into, and it's not to skip subject, but this was a part of the subject. Let's get into who is the God that they trust. Now, this first father, we can just give him now the name kin or king. This is where the word king comes from. The king was kin. He was like your family member if you were alive back then. So, because remember, there's not that many people here anyway. So the king, in essence, becomes the key for all of us to understand, okay, well, where did we really come from? Now, when we trace these words back, what it's actually saying is that they're, okay, I'm gonna have to collect my thoughts here, because we've gone really into the deep.
This is going really deep, yes. But that's why we love having you on the show, because this advanced knowledge, we're actually thinking our Friday show should be the regular show, then the Saturday should be kind of the PhD edition where we have people like yourself and Dan Winter on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd definitely be willing to participate. I mean, so much of it is it can be broken down to something so minuscule. I want to tell people that sometimes things get a little bit confusing, but because it stretches across the entire spectrum, there is a simple way in your life for you to see that all of this is true. Somebody can do it through mathematics. Someone can do it through food even. So this is what the universal knowledge is capable of doing. It doesn't really require a person to go and learn something completely different or focus all their attention on just this. It requires them to first do what every successful person has to do, and that's study to be something that is your gift, not what you think is just going to make you money. Because what will happen is that you'll end up in a field where that's someone's gift. So if you think, okay, I'm going to study to be a computer analyst because they make money, and computers is not even your strong point, cooking maybe. When you graduate and you finally go into a job, your boss is going to be someone that's his gift as a computer analyst. That's who you always find at the top of their different industries. So you find your gift, and then you start to study how to maximize that and how to utilize that in this reality, because this one's totally different. That's why I tell people to log back on. Look, you can go have your own radio show. You can go have your own TV show, and you can actually do all that even for free. You can have your own platform. You can do it, and you can go to Kickstarter and get someone to help you jump your idea off. You see, so now what we're actually dealing with is not that there's not potential for the amazing people to come through and do things that change the entire world. Here's another thing. Look at all the stuff around you. All the stuff that's around you, such as electricity and things of that nature, were built and put into this world by a few people, not everyone. So if you're looking for everyone to be doing something, some people are definitely still in incubation stage. Well, since your birth, you have to go and see now that you have the ability now. You're the one that is now bridging the gaps. It's like you're the one that awoke amongst children. And here's another thing that I have to tell very conscious people, because they're having a hard time these days. If you go one notch above human, some people now, the reason why you have to understand there's such a stigmata between humans thinking that there's something above them is because of this whole one God thing. And then they're told never to look into any other gods, and never to, so this shuts down any other higher concepts of higher dimensions. But of course, there's at least one being above a human. So if you go into any mega spiritual experience, you become that being, but you still live on 3D. So what happens is you're like an adult amongst literally children. Now, the reason why humanity is children, because they're still in fight, so they're fighting. They're always in the combustion wars. And the pain and the suffering and the abundance and all that stuff seem to be all rolled into this. And they can't seem to figure out how to get out. And that's why the pentagram was also called what in Gaelic term? The endless knot. Meaning that you could actually be in this cycle forever if you didn't figure it out. So this is why this takes us to an entirely different level of our maturity in figuring it out, because you actually take the responsibility to actually really see what's going on rather than just think you know what's going on or imagine someone will help you if things get really bad. Things may never get really bad because, in truth, this is already not what we're supposed to be doing. Like I said, we've been benched. We've been missing out on the show. Your world, your words create worlds. The moment that you figure out exactly what you're saying is the moment that you can begin to activate this being. So let me also explain about this king situation so that it becomes very clear. The king, or the first man, I'm calling him Prometheus, gave fire which is actually the Cabal or language, to man, meaning his children, because man doesn't just mean masculine. That's why, think about this. Look at the word man, masculine, male, and all these words that are supposed to be men, but begin with ma, which actually is a woman. So how do these words mean even what we call a man? That's not true. The words are not saying that. The words are saying, you guys all sprung forth from what we call ma, and so now you're called man and woman. That's it. But these words are, of course, very powerful, but you have to understand what they're saying if we've already accepted them as our program. Instead of trying to get people to change, okay, now you got to change the complete program. No, you have to master the program. Trying to change the program is almost like trying to go into insanity. You have so much of this language, you dream in the language now. You think to yourself in the language. Do you think that the first beings thought to themselves in the language? No, they only thought what they felt. The language is now like the go-between. It's almost like our short circuit to us being grand beings if we don't know how to say it. So that if we don't know how to speak the words. And so this became known as the collapse of the tower. Now, the tower in the Cabal, in the language, is all the same thing. It's like a disc. But the reason why they called it, they say in the Bible that God came down and he destroyed the tower that man was building because they were all speaking one language, one tongue, is because that tower is basically a language that when you say something, it really happens.
Mm-hmm. And speak things into existence in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what the language could do. So we know where the language came from. It doesn't become such a big mystery. Okay, well, where did it come from? No. The first man that stepped up, that in the androgynous being, whatever you want to call it, what it spoke to its children, which are basically our parents and great-great-great-grandparents, was this language that they were using to create everything. So that's why they had the language. So this also now tells you why things got shady. Why things went south. Because remember, over in Angkor Wat, there's a temple that is completely lined to Orion. And they're called Lemurians. And they're serpents. And they're Naga, serpent humans. Now, here's what I have to say about people who think that there's other reptilian species on this planet, et cetera, et cetera. The beings that we're experiencing can be hybridized easily by the things that they have been blending themselves with here on the planet. Meaning that once you finally become king and you have all these capabilities to do things, if you start going in the wrong direction, you're now going to use all your resources to attempt to do more external. So what is that? Live longer, become stronger and fearful, because they of course show you that in the old days, the sons started fighting against each other. As people began to multiply, now it's like she's eating my grass from my cows. Mm-hmm. Then people started using the language against each other. This is called a curse. So notice how there's a sequence to all this. Do you think there was curses first? No, something had to happen. So in people in that cube, 26, with the weight, the heavy, the mighty, the abundant multitude, once too many people start getting around and then somebody upsets another person, curses become used. Now here's the weird part. If everyone is still connected to the original being, which we already just proved, then when you curse someone, you're actually cursing yourself, whether you know it or not. So this leads into an endless knot of everyone using the pentagram to curse each other. You see now why the pentagram is used to cast spells and in magic? So now we're playing on a dimension where we got other individuals that know that they can inscribe certain things on paper and it has the power of the star in which it was configured to pull down from. Mm-hmm. The pentagram was used as a tool in order to measure these stars in order for them to get this knowledge. It had use on multiple levels. That's why it was called the hammer of Thor. It was a pentagram. It's the hammer because you can use it to basically bang down doors. That's why when you turn it upside down, it was a ram. And this was synonymous with when the child has to go through the wall of the womb. It needs to get out of there now. Oh shit, it's 9 months. I got to get out. Some people feel like that now. Now they have ram horn, which is what Dan Winter pointed out is the shape that the aura goes into once it reaches past the crown chakra. And they beat the door down and dimension opens. It shatters, basically. Now, the interesting part is that that's exactly what many of the characters within the Hebrew language are designed to do, are designed to open up particular doors in the dimension, and then they close once the individual goes through them. So how can we ever win with this kind of stuff going on? This is what I started thinking about as this became not only aware to me, but I had vivid experiences, physical experiences of this going on 4 or 5 years ago. And when that was going on for me, I didn't have any of this knowledge to be able to map out what exactly was going on. I'm one of those people who actually went and continued to study to figure out what I was experiencing and how it tied into some real system in order to stay sane. That's why we also use these words. These words were like anchors to us. Like your mom's name is an anchor to you. When you say you know, when you say certain names, like now people use God. God is goth. It's a Gothic word. It's from the same individuals of the Merovingians. That's their word. I'm not saying it's a positive or negative thing. I'm just saying if we don't know that kind of stuff, this puts us in this baby mode. And then from that point, we need king. Now, let me explain what happened. After the whole bloodlines and everything broke up, you obviously see the king now is like a surrogate father. He's so disconnected from us, we don't even talk to him. But he was supposed to be our father. See, any man that is on this earth that says he's the king but does not come and address all the people as if he's their children is a surrogate. So what happens is that when the king still is protecting everyone, in certain sense in different countries, especially that are using the currency of this king. This is why right now we're broadcasting and missiles are not dropping out of the air, but there's places that you can go where there's missiles dropping out of the air.
Right.
This is kind of how the king justifies what he does. And this is also the tarot of the emperor card. This is still an empire. The first largest building, which are themselves phallic symbols, of course, big penis, basically. Super machismo problem, even though that begins with ma. These buildings, the first one, empire state. But wait a minute, didn't China have an empire? Are we still dealing with that? So I traced it back. Chinese is actually so similar to the original language that all these languages evolved from. You see, it's Kabbalah too. It's Judaism goes into Chinese as far as how the Kabbalistic word works, because the only thing that they're utilizing is the language of the stars. This is the key also. I haven't said anything in this whole sentence that was the same thing twice. The language of the stars is what the ancient language was. The reason is because, of course, to the ancients, the stars were like in high definition for real. And they can feel the energy coming off the stars. So they knew by the hue of the stars which ones were associated with each other. They didn't just do a random dot to dot and start assigning them to animals. What they did was they showed you the symbol that correspond to the essence of that animal energy. This is called zoomorphication. So now this is how the world is attempting to advance, because it's actually in possession of a language that, what did they tell you later on? Possesses the knowledge of how to build a computer. Hebrew, if you go and research it, possesses the knowledge of how to build a computer. And the reason why is because the numerology behind Hebrew is based on the same numerology of where a computer runs: 4, 8, 16, 32, 32 bits, 128 bits, 256. You see what I mean? These are Kabbalistic numbers, though. So now we can also see why the machine is in our world, like why this computer is actually here. And as I told people before, if you think that anything is inorganic, plastic has atoms in it. So, in essence, if anything has an atom in it, it can be manipulated and is in fact alive on some other state of consciousness. Now, this starts to become, for people, very difficult to accept when they have limitations and they don't know how to bend. If they want to really understand how to bend a reality, is to stop seeing it as there's nothing that can happen here. Someone's about to pull out miracle. Now, if I have something on my waist with 5 different miracles on it, I can throw one out. Meaning that a miracle is like a power ability, something like off a Pokemon. If you got a couple of them, you can throw them out into the reality. And because miracles are only used when the situation requires it, or else it can't be called a miracle. You see what I mean? But the word exists. So this is why certain people could empower themselves on words, because they would say, okay, if that word exists.
We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with Sevan, Resistance2010.com, right here on Truth Frequency.
Broadcasting worldwide in complete defiance of the U.S. Patriot Act and the NDAA.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
Hello friends, I am the Anti-Terrorist, and you're listening to Truth Frequency.
They want to externally manipulate the body computer so it doesn't pick up these truth vibrations, these higher levels of awareness that are coming in so fast now.
It's all visible, like mind control techniques employed in the mainstream media.
And by perpetuating that fear and maintaining that throughout every level of society, it becomes really difficult to actually break through to people, to actually get them to see that they can find this love and this higher consciousness within themselves.
And this often helps a lot because some of the most elusive mysteries you're not able to apprehend them directly. You can only apprehend them by negation as to finding out what they're not.
The veil is lifted and we can see things as they are. And ultimately, we have control over that.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, with Sevan. And, this gentleman is just so well-researched that I'm sitting back and listening just like every one of you out there and trying to absorb all this information. So, Sevan, why don't you just take the floor? We've got it until the bottom of the hour, so take us away, please.
Okay, awesome. So are we, how much more time do we really have into this so I know exactly where I can really steer the ship?
We've got another hour. We can go overdrive if you want, but another hour on the scheduled show.
Okay, awesome. So an hour should definitely be enough to get through this. I really want to start off now really about talking about some of just the personal situations that I've been experiencing with a lot of the individuals. Of course, we have a very large community, but of course I have a physical world too that I deal with. And starting to become somewhat saddened about these individuals that are dealing with psychological problems and demonic problems because, generally the techniques that are taught overall can't really cure those problems. And so it started making me yearn for Panuncia, or the rod of Hermes, because you see friends and you see people that are connected into the system, and that it's in many cases with the negative sides of it getting the best of them. And so you feel that tug, especially if you've opened up your chakra centers, and when you try to connect to those individuals, you don't get the response that you want. And I want to talk about the power of these words and understanding your mind and how powerful it is, because the mantra is known to connect with vibrations that have already graduated far beyond our particular cycle. It's already come up with a solution for our problem. But it takes the individual also that's welding it, because all it is an amplification of what you are. Any type of essence or energy is only an amplification of what you already are. So the person has this responsibility to make sure that they're balanced before they quicken themselves. And this is also what I want to talk about in regards to the pole shift, because how the pole shift is taking place is now, let's say you're on South Pole, then all of a sudden you get shifted over to the North Pole. You're just as confused. Many people think that going to another pole means that everything was worse, but now everything was bad, but now it's going to get good. This is that same childish bad and good thing. It's a pole. So if a pole shifts, this means you only go to the other side of yourself. So if you've been really material, you'll go to the spiritual side of yourself. But if the spiritual side of yourself has been dark, remember, there's a dark spiritual side. Then now the person is just more of a dark field energy being.
Well, let me ask you this, Sevan, because it's something that we've talked about recently. Many people are starting to move towards the idea that we need to embrace the darkness. And as a matter of fact, I was reading some literature by some Mayan elders, and they were saying that we need to unite with the darkness and be one and balanced and whole. There's a night and day, there's a man and woman, and so we need the dark and the light. I find this to be rather suspicious coming at this point in time right now when we're transitioning into this 2012, 2013 a fifth sun, as the Mayans would say. But what do you think about that idea of embracing the darkness?
Thing is that, first of all, what the ancients were calling darkness is something entirely different into what we're interpreting darkness as now. Like after Michael Jackson, when I say, man, that's bad, it's actually good. So we do that a lot. And so what the ancients called darkness was that you need to embrace your mother, Eve, the womb, which is the root to the word evening. In a matrix, it's dark. Now, one already embraced the mother or embraced the earth. You see what I mean? And what came from that embracement was a sun. And now there is night and dark because one being already existed in the darkness, and that is its pole, while the other being existed or was attempting to exist. Now, here's the other thing. It's funny because you see that creation means this is now one of your times to exist. So people have to understand what this darkness was is that it was what we didn't know. They didn't encourage you to be like this brittle-minded person who believed you knew it all. Like if you even maximize this universe, you still only knew about this immediate universe and the geometry that was associated with it. You were given as a hint that there was more strange shapes, what they call strange geometry. So what this means is that the potential of this is being pushed out by a being that's so sentient. Before we start thinking about that there's a limitation, we have to understand that this being is already raced off to develop fields of no limitations. Now, and this is why. If you have this race of 8, 9 billion, 10 billion people, you don't have time to sit there with them. You got to go and make new spaces for them to come to. And how this happens in our world, our regular world, is that you start having a lot of children. You're not going to keep those children all in one room if you can help it. Each time a new child is about to come, you go work a little bit more, you get a bigger house. Something has to be developed for that child to come.
Right.
So everyone's trying to figure out, well, where is God? Right. You're looking at him. Go look at the mirror. The deception is having everyone think that there's a God outside. So this makes now a 3D God. Now let's talk about the king again. Now, because the king, remember, he's God in the flesh. This is what the Vatican loves to play around with. Now, this is the level of God King. Now, we remember this term, right? God King. What is a God King? Oh, it's a pharaoh. Now, pharaoh didn't even get that term, by the way, until a certain group of individuals entered into Lower Egypt to study the knowledge of Abdul al-Hazred, which is the knowledge of the Necronomicon and the gates of the underworld. Now, Lower Egypt, people should know by all these books that they're reading, is the underworld. That's what they called it. So what happened is that some people who just don't like to let go, meaning that if they saw that their aunt or their uncle died, they would make a trip to Egypt to figure out what happened to them. Because people were connected so much then. Now notice, this connectivity has not faded out until basically the last 200 years. If you go into indigenous territories, they're all like family. So this means only 300, 400 years back, everyone was like tight knit. You knew what everyone was doing. That's Jimmy. He slept with, what's the name, sister? It's small town, big hell. Everyone knows your name, right? So it just switched with United States, AKA the New World. So notice how the trend becomes tell everyone it's about to be a new world order when there's already been a new world order. Tell everyone that there's about to be a destruction of the world when there's already been a destruction of the world. You see what I mean? It's like keep rehashing this circle and telling them this is what's going to happen next and never allow them to go out and figure it out for themselves. Because then when you figure it out for yourself, man, what happens next is limitless. No one can even tell you what it's going to be. And so this is why you have no more use for priests. You have no use for the structures of these kind of religious systems. You have no more use for any of that when you have a universal system. So, of course, humanity is about to activate the universal system. And this is why this kind of information is even being revealed. Even understanding the magnitude of if the language is in the stars then, and the stars actually map out destiny, that means because that's called zodiac, right? Astrology. That means what we're saying then is now fully pinned to we're actually manifesting it. And then here's also a weird part. I started looking at the languages, the English language, and running it across the ancient language in the order that the ancient languages go in. Oh my goodness. English breaks right after the third word, meaning that English is actually a trip through a particular constellation. It's not even a cabal itself. It's not complete. That's why I told people before, look, 26 plus 26 is 52.
Wait a minute. What do you mean English breaks after the third word? Can you expand on that a little bit?
That after C, D doesn't exist in all the languages. It actually goes to G. So what happens here is that because I'm showing you the symbol of constellations, this means once you get to Cephas, I believe, now you break right into the Gamma quadrant. So how this works in your mind, since your mind is the universe, is this language is actually running a route that is specified through your mind like a program.
That is true. In the Greek alphabet, it's alpha, beta, gamma, delta. That would be A, B, G, D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens when you move the constellation, you create a different, what happens is you basically didn't go through this certain phase in order. They put something else that you would experience there, and so this would change how you saw the next phase. This is why the next phase is already here, but people see it as the end. Hello. Like right now, I can log on and I can pull down right now, if I know what I'm looking for, all of the information about how to break matrices. That's never been done before. Our parents didn't really have computers. There was a disconnection because the disconnection was from our parents. Because remember, the king is not he's not acting like he's our kin. So this is why there's this Saturnalian component. Now notice Saturn has in his hand a scythe. So if you go into the history books and you say, where does this word scythe come from? It comes from the people, the Scythians. They use this tool. And they are the originators of what we're now calling Saturnalian. Now, the main use of this tool now, because it used to be used for reaping harvests, the main use for it is to cut like your umbilical cord, to cut your connection from the earth. Now, shamans that were in Peru were reporting that people who came from the U.S. seem to somehow have the cable that all the indigenous people have still connected to them cut by their mind, though. Here's the strangest part about it. If we were really cut from our mother, we would fall dead right away. But we can actually imagine that we're not connected. Now, here's where the remorse comes in, because a lot of these stuff is with family members. Of course, everyone is family. But still, some people, it's like closer family, so they're still, tripping. So here's what it is with remorse. Remorse is an anchor. If you cannot get over it, you can't get to what's next anyway. It's only your body and your frequency is only obeying what command you've just given it. You're telling it, stay, I can't forgive. And now here's another deeper part about it, because I'm not talking about many of the spiritual people. I'm talking about the people who still think that the Arabs are the one who dropped the towers. Remember, not everyone got the 9/11 bulletin or even believe in that kind of conspiracy stuff. So they still believe that these people who are fire worshipers hurt us first, when it was really just a beef between Osama and George Bush. So, but this is what happens though. Now, you got these people who are not spiritually inclined because their Lord Jesus, we won't even get into that right now, but he's really Apollonius of Tyana. But his spiritual power is waning because spiritual power wanes when people stop believing in you because you don't deliver. This is what happens with anyone. Every sun god has been put to the test to deliver. If he can't deliver, he's out of there. So what happens is in this entire dynamic is you have people now with very little spiritual protection attacking individuals with an insane level of spiritual protection. Because remember, these are poles now. So what has the Eastern world always been doing on their pole? they're so religious that it's become their Achilles heel. Why the Western culture, which is a culture of death, has been so infested with the culture of death, it's become their Achilles heel. So where do you want to really be? In the middle. You need to understand ultimate life and ultimate death, and then smash those two together and remain there. But what happens in the Eastern world is this belief in their God, in the symbols, which is a crescent moon and a pentagram and a cube that they circumambulate 7 times. This type of belief system is very dangerous to deal with if you have no spiritual protection. But now, if you're inside of the dynamic, you're only experiencing what's happening around you. You're so confused, the stock market's dropping, you're losing your job and all this, you don't even know what's going on. If you're on the key theory of yourself, meaning you pulled out and you know all this self, what you see is that no matter what the excuse is, these two beings, these two brothers will be going at it forever down here on the dual dimension. This is a binary world. It's 0 and 1s, meaning either you do or you don't. It's cause and effect. That's also the adult, because when you have children, right, you can't deal with maybe. Somebody says, are you going to be able to pay me tomorrow? Well, maybe I'll pay you tomorrow. The mother's not going to sit there on no maybe. She's going to go and find who's going to pay her tomorrow so she can feed her children, right? So this same type of behavior that we have or I guess used to have with protecting our seeds. Notice a tree, if you go to mango tree, what's coming off the mango tree? Mangoes. You go to apple tree, what's coming off the apple tree? Apples. Go to the human, what's coming off the human? Babies. So babies are our fruit. Mm-hmm. So if somebody eating our fruit, like that's where superhuman has to kick back in, because 100%, like this doesn't have to be like this. Like but we will be the ones to get ourselves out of it. And let me explain why. Because like I told you, when you put curses on each other and all that, now the universe is like, okay, they're going to have to figure it out and they're going to have to do it together. So what this means is that in the nucleus, though, there's different situations taking place everywhere that are going to rectify the situation that are different. If you pulled out of it, you would see it as one entire body. I'll explain this again. In your body, you have a brain, you have a heart, you have a liver, you have all this stuff. But it's all functioning for what's on the outside, this one body. So this is how these compartments are set up. And I feel like many of us, especially the True Frequency Radio, is taking their station in the ship. Now, some people, they think, I want to fly the ship. And still never realizing the person that flies the ship is not even the captain. So they're so confused at who's going to be doing this and who's going to be doing what. Nobody's doing anything. And this is also what happens with remorse. In remorse, the person's so pissed off and bitter about something that they stay there. And every time they get a hint or a trigger or anything of it, which there's like 1,000 of them a day, it makes them through gravity of their mind. Okay, now we're talking gravity. The gravity of their mind slams them back down into the frequency that they normally reside in, which these Scientologists call theta. Now remember, now there's another group of individuals on the earth that actually have all of this information and knowledge. They have all the information and knowledge and know that humanity is sitting in one of the lower frequencies, then feeding humanity poison so that they can stay in those lower frequencies. Now, what I'm saying is that instead of using traditional ways, okay, let me just say this, just so I can get this out this show. Instead of using traditional ways to fix this problem, let's use an untraditional way, because just like I said before, when you see all the things that are around you that are great, it was only a few people that brought those things to this world and saw it through and put it there so that everyone else can benefit off of it. It wasn't everyone else. So what happens is within unique individuals, they have this duty, because they're now at the stage of birthing, to take care of their children. Now, if some people think it's a trip, an ego trip, that you would consider the guy next to you that doesn't have an expansive level of his spiritual existence a child, what happens when the old person gets really old and, you know, they just gotten old? Now the things of life, the Alzheimer's from eating the aluminum and all these different things that they've done in life that even have cause and effect that stem out way later on, what do they generally go into a stage of? A child. They need to wear Pampers again. They forget, they don't know much. The speech is almost unintelligible. You see? So what is wrong about saying that you're a child? This is almost saying, being mad that if someone says you're just a student. I stay in the student mode all the time so that I can learn something. If I think that I'm an actual teacher, then now I can actually even learn from my students. So the reality for all of us right now is that this power is accessible, but it's accessible to the individuals that know that this is what they came here to do. I'm giving you the keys and the numbers behind what controls this dimension. I will tell you also that there is an entire hospital in Jerusalem of individuals who've used words and could not withstand those energies. This is the other part. This is the disclaimer, okay? What happens with mantra is it changes your vibrational frequency. And so where you go, and this is where people can really start locking on to what they're communicating with and what they're talking to. When you go somewhere, you go to that frequency version of yourself. So at any point, if you look at that being that you're communicating with as external to you, you've set up a trap for yourself. It's almost like a dream in itself, because notice how in your dream, all of what you're dreaming seems to be manifesting and already there before you even turn around in the dream.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Look how detailed the dream is. This is the other thing that used to just bug me out anyway, is just that we dream. And then the detail, I'm like, man, the water was dripping on the floor, was running down the drain. I saw a little insect running across the side, and one was even smashed. What is this? And why aren't we exploring that? It's like the end of video games, to me at least. So, of course, when you even dig anywhere deeper into anything, that's what I'm trying to tell people, anything that you're doing, if you dig anywhere deeper into it, you'll find out there's some occult nature to it, even pornography. Some people see now that the destruction of the masculine energy is coming with the pornography. But how does that really connect in the dimension? You see what I mean? This is about a system that can show you how everything, even through etymology, porn, horn, corn, you just start taking these words, and eventually you get just to the bacchanalia, the corn gods, children of the corn even. You'll get into that mischievous nature of the dark side, as they call it, of earth. But what is the dark side? Ignorance, childish. So you run around the forest with your penis out, basically, excuse my terminology.
What?
But
I'm sorry, you're talking about corn and all of a sudden you're bringing penises into it. It's like, I'm sorry, can you start? I'm sorry.
Only
start
7.
Over. Please continue. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's still all relative is what I'm trying to show people, is that when we attempt to give terminology for the symbols, because it actually crosses over into everything, we find these weird connections. When we understand those connections, what it's telling us is one thing. Either you're, like I said, the kid with, oh man, the cooties, or you understand that the entire nature of the universe is regeneration. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. And so all the components of regeneration, from the times in the womb itself, to the spiral that the baby is actually in, to the mitosis and how the eggs are splitting up and the numbers of how the eggs are splitting up, these are the only real things that you would actually need in order to lay over any reality and actually know exactly what's going on. Because no reality can exist without fertility. And that's what I was explaining to you before. When you look at any dollar bill, and I have like 50,000 different dollar bills from different countries, just to show you how much currency is actually in progress. And if you understand anything about talismans, you'll see that every single dollar bill has several, not only occult symbols, but all of the symbols of what the people of that nation consider fertility. Generally, they have the tree. Generally, they have the bird that's the most populates the most places. And that's why when people look at it, they're like, oh man, I feel so good when I see money, but they see the quail on there and their ancestors ate quail. You see what I mean? So this is how these triggers keep triggering us and us not knowing what they mean, because there is entire codices. As they say, there's a 5-mile library underneath the Vatican. There's entire codices that this has already been explained. Piece by piece by piece.
And so with the recent conflict in the Middle East, we can, instead of, do you see it as like an Ishmael versus Isaac thing?
Well, I can give you because that gets into the other part of the conversation that we were talking about. I pulled in the book that Obama actually means lightning. Okay. And this word, when it was used as a term, which was actually a long, long time ago, when this word is used, it's normally synonymous with blitzkrieg, which actually means lightning war. And what this is basically a run on other countries, like basically the Four Horsemen. So what's behind Mavis is, I believe, Pharaoh. Like, I think that, I mean, that's easy. Like, if they wanted to do it, they could do it, is what I'm telling you. Like, the genetics are still there. The DNA is still there. The resemblance is shocking. And then here's another thing. Like, I'm not an individual that gets stripped from time, meaning that I know what happened and what didn't happen. This person came from nowhere in my book. He came from nowhere and he became the president. They say he was in Chicago before then. You see what I mean? But this is how timelines are switched. If we won't get into this now, because this talks about basic dream manipulation. When you wake up in dreams only the dreams that you survive in, how you've really been surviving, some of the different tools that you've learned over multiple lifetimes, your oversoul in times in which you were connected to your oversoul and you gained certain things, your actual disconnection process and what took place in that process. So there's a step-by-step procedure of you becoming what they call remembered. Now remember, a member is like your arm and like your leg.
Or like something else you mentioned earlier. Sorry.
Remember you means to put back on the parts of you, the main parts that are actually missing. And what these parts actually correspond to is the glands that we have that they say, oh, we don't use those anymore. And this is not just the pineal gland. Of course, we've gone pineal gland crazy at this point. But there are other glands that are not functioning either, that are close to other chakra centers. So, by all means, like, that's why I'm so excited. I'm pure optimist because it can happen at any moment. I've already experienced so many levels of energy that can actually spread to other individuals just through contact.
Sevan, hold that thought real quick. Let's take a quick bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes right here on Truth Frequency. All right, final segment right here on Truth Frequency with Sevan of Resistance2010.com. And Sevan, tell us real quick, just for the people tuning in, your websites, radio shows, all of that good stuff.
Okay, yeah. People can get to us through www.astroquest.com. And that's, really easy to remember. And then there's esotericradio.com every other Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. There's always some fresh stuff. And then we also have daily Skype chats where we cover different topics daily, and that's really awesome to participate in, especially if you want more of like a curriculum-based, real-time, in the know thing going on every day. So I hope to metamorphosize it into like a daily news, and then I get on early in the morning and give people the esoteric news of the day, and yeah, we just keep this thing moving. Like for me, I'm super expanded, man. Like I'm already outside of this. I'm just trying to show people, man. I tell you what, the best people, no matter what they get, they don't feel happy about it unless everyone else is enjoying it. That's just how it is. I'll tell people the truth. They want to know, well, what is his thing though? Like he doesn't charge for his stuff and all this, his book is free. Like, so what is his whole thing? What is he really getting? And then they start thinking darkness and all this stuff. But the reality is that I'm one of those individuals is that it's like what you see in the movies. If someone's eating the ice cream, you're eating the ice cream, you see a child over there that's looking at you that they want it and they're poor, you're going to give them the ice cream. You see what I mean? This is like a simple gesture, and I believe that many of us have that in our core. But of course, this is not just about children and ice cream anymore. This is about an entire planet and possibly multiple dimensions that are running parallel to ours. This is about like shattered glass, and picking up pieces. And this is about responsibility. And I also want to say, the thing to finish off with remorse is that, is it really worth it? That's also, for some people, they're like, I'm never going to forgive that person. I don't care what anyone says. But now I just want people to think about, because that's still also a selfish idea. So you still have to remember that all is self. But in order to get over that hump, now think about yourself and ask you, is it really worth allowing this person, now that you know all of what I just said in this conversation about the dynamics of frequencies and all that, if this is the anchor point that's holding you into another frequency, you're actually going to let this person even get that one on you too? Let them go. I call it release the ship, cut the cord, because where they need to get to is actually the equivalent of where you're going for them.
Right.
It's completely different. You see what I mean? It may not even be up to your expectations, God, but they need to get to the next level, and they can't even get there either, because now you guys are yoked together. And this is why a lot of the symbolism on the dimension has to do with the ox and them being yoked together in the milk from the mother, etc. But the yoke, what it is that when you have someone that you're in some type of relationship or some type of oath with, then now you've agreed to pull the load together. Now, if it's harder if you're yoked with someone and they're not pulling the load than if you're just by yourself, even. So people have to understand, like, you have to work on the frequencies of the individuals that are around you in order to rehabilitate this environment the way that it needs to happen. So these are the tools to do that. But don't think that you're just going into some, oh, brothers, let's sit down and meditate. This would be boring if it was like that. We're sitting in a dimension with very advanced beings that need to be schooled. And that's just how it works. It's like that creates actually the next level of who we really are. Because people think that they're going to go to the next level and they're still going to be doing the same thing they're doing now, collecting trinkets and, you see what I mean? It's not, the next level means that whatever's going on this level is not going on there. That's what makes it the next one. If it was like the same thing, then it could be just this level. And so that's why we see that we have no choice but to expand if we want to escape what appears to be somewhat like a fire behind us. And you know how like fire, if it was behind you, it makes you run faster though? That's how we have to treat it. But the boys that are on the dimension now, Pharaoh, the four horsemen and them, these sons, to answer your question, Cherie, these sons, man, they've been fighting ever since they made an oath with their father that they wouldn't fight anymore. They made a, before their father died, their father told them, and this is, I'm not talking about the original man, but further down the line, their father told them, Ham, don't go to war anymore with your brothers, because we just basically cleaned the world out of all those kind of beings, that kind of attitude, that warlike attitude. But if you guys start fighting again, you're going to bring them back. So this is in the Talmud, and when you read it from the Talmud, it reads very strange. And when you interpret it, what it literally says is that when you get angry, you bring out this being that we put away a long time ago. And when he comes back here, he destroys things. So we have to learn to put him away. And so when a person says, well, who is it? Is it the devil? No, it's another part of us that we understand how to contain. The same way the higher beings understand how to contain us here while we're doing this. You see what I mean? The system is continuously redundant. That's the only way that it really works. This thing will fall offline really fast. And this is the knowledge that we even have the chance to even comprehend. If a person's hanging on just a little bit to what is actually being said, man, you've grown so far in your level of comprehension. Your mind, body, and soul work in conjunction. Don't let people tell you that, oh, you're all mental, or you're all spiritual, or you're all physical. All these vehicles work in conjunction and generally remain in the reflection of one another, unless there is an extreme imbalance, meaning that if your physical body is stronger than your spirit, there's going to be extreme imbalance in you. The same way, if your spirit is stronger than your physical body, they call that Ming energy, you actually begin to deteriorate your physical body. Your joints start to actually, you feel like you can break a bone really easy. So really spiritual people are always told, especially in many of the ancient traditions like lamas and dojins, you must maintain ground. You must learn how to ground so that even if you're on a bird or in a plane, that you can still feel the connection in your feet to the ground. You need that much, because what is ground? Because we have this energy within us, and of course we're dealing with Kundalini masters, because they have that kind of current, the ground is necessary. Now let's think about it from a car stereo. If you got 1,000 watts sitting in the trunk on some stereo Vegas, and you run that thing, and then your ground wire ain't really strong or attached to something or not thick enough, it burns up right away.
Right.
And so your ground has to be just as strong as your power. So what we have on the dimension is all these birdmen learning from their fish god about how to stay up in the air and never really come down and help anyone. And let me unencrypt that. What we have is people who have learned the system of the spirit descending from the top. Maybe notice the symbol is a dove descending upon them. This means we're going to unlock your chakras from the top down. Whoa. Nothing's done from the top down. Everything's done from the bottom up. You guys are about to reverse the system. This is going to be crazy. Now, the higher beings sit back and watch this. But the reality is that our entire system has been upside down. And so now you see how it's just such an adventure. Like if someone can walk you through it and talk you through this, especially through imagery, because imagery is also the other key, because following along my voice of what I'm saying, and, even stuck on the last idea about the great epiphany that you had by something I may not even have said, but what you came to the conclusion of based on something that you jumped off of that I said. Now, imagine if we're all doing that in the same room together. That's called building. So it does, now imagine we're also using this language that is of power. So we're literally basically sitting in a circle creating things through what we're saying with each other. Now you get an insight of how all these animals and entities and different things were created. We made them. But here's the responsibility when you make something. Like I said, we got ourselves into a jam. Because notice in the symbolism, you see that there's many, in as above, so below nature, you see there's many children that are being unkept. They don't have parents. Now the dimension actually feels like its parents are not here. Where's God? So all of these connect because there's these major responsibilities that someone, and I'm one of them, I'm ready to jump into this, knowing that if you have this knowledge and wisdom and you've been put in this position, that there's something about you that is still so connected to your original self, your oversoul, that you even managed in this one to be at that curve that is measuring out at 3%, meaning that there's really only 3% of the people in the world that truly know and can feel what's going on here. The rest of them are still stuck in one of the celestial houses. Meaning that some are still Aries. Most of them are Aries now, war gods. They are protecting their family. This is like a never-ending mission, especially when their family keeps growing. And then they're not trained properly. So basically, the U.S. is like a bunch of bad kids. And then the fathers, knowing that there's only 30 years of oil left, are sitting here fighting each other to who's going to have it to keep their children fed. Mm-hmm. And how this manifests to us is that, oh, the Homeland Security is everywhere. You got to read the stage that has already been going for a long time. That's why they call them motherlands. Like Russia was a motherland, Africa is a motherland. This is because the people there feel like they already broke off, just like when the continents broke off in Pangea. Meaning that there are groups of people that don't feel like the other ones that are on the opposite side are connected to them. They haven't learned that yet. That's what a child is, though. Because notice how a child, when you show it like a teddy bear, it doesn't know what that is. So this is the same state that an individual is in when they don't understand that all is self. When they understand that all these men and women and children are actually us. That's how at least the universe looks at us. So we need to start gaining that insight. And so now, with this, I'll tell people, if they want to know, well, how did you get all this information? It was with those thoughts. I reversed one equation. That was when I had a bunch of stuff, I noticed that I kept losing it. I kept getting a bunch of stuff and kept losing it. We call this the roller coaster. Sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. And one time when I was up, I decided that I was going to give everything that I had accumulated while being up just to the world so I can get released from it. Because I knew the cycle was going to come again. I was like 100% knew. I said, you know what, you're about to fall again. And I was like, but maybe if I give everything away before I fall, maybe that will actually reverse the equation. And it did. Like I detached from that stuff just on what they call that, like taking a step. Sometimes they say that's like the fool stepping off the cliff. If you go to the next card, which is a magician, you realize the step always appears after you take the step. It's not really a step there because you create a step as a magician. And this is also that deeper knowledge that was written in the stars, and why the tarot is based on the 22 cards is because the 22 letters of Hebrew is the same system that is used to calculate all of this stuff. It's like, this would be the only knowledge that your kids would need to know. Like this would take about 1 year in school at their age of comprehension. And from that moment, they would become masters of the universe. So I think that we probably should do that, seeing that we need something drastic to happen in order to turn the world out of this curve. Now, here's what I also have to tell people. Here's the age that we're going into next, and I am watching the time. We're going into the age of ether. Now, everyone has to understand that when we were in the industrial age, people were still not seeing the space age and the computer age. They didn't even know what was coming next. If you ask those hardworking people what was coming next, the most they can see was the hammer right in front of them. So in the computer age, now we act like we haven't got smart enough to understand what comes after the space age, which is what we're currently at. It's the age of ether. It's actually the time in which we discover that there is an entirely different vehicle that we are. So, of course, now you already see things rolling in of stuff that's supposed to help your soul and fix your soul, right? Not just from motivational speeches, but even pills and supplements that can fix your soul. I'll tell people that the only thing that can fix us is us. It's an organic thing. This would be like if you had this super sophisticated computer, and now I need to hook up diagnostic to it. What device am I going to use? I have to have a device that is similar, or at least a bridge for that device. So if you want to heal a human, you can't put a pill in them. You need to hook another human up to them. And then that human has to run diagnostics and see what's wrong with the other human, and then correct the imbalances with light. And when I say light, most people think of white. White and black are not a color. Light is the spectrum. Green, yellow, blue, orange. That's light. That's also why in our world, poles are always defined as white and black. Because white and black are horrible. I'll show you. These ultra people who think they're all pure and can't descend the ladder to help the ones that are downtrodden are just as much monsters as the ones that are on the complete negative end that are pushing the kill switch at every single moment.
Amen to that.
Because they won't connect. Now they say, meet me in the center. You notice how with someone you're trying to make a truce and you still kind of big and bad and the other one's big and bad, and they say, well, look, meet me in the center then. I'm not going to come to where you're at. So what the center is for us is our children. But I'll still continue the story. These energies meet in your navel. Notice how the world lived on this concept for a long time that the earth was the center of the universe. Then later on found out the sun was the center of the universe. So where is the sun now, since your chakra centers and your organs correspond to the planets? Where is the sun on your body? So people say immediately, it's the crown chakra. No. Saying that the sun is the crown chakra is just as silly as saying that the earth is the center of the universe, because that's where that thought came from. The center of you is your navel, the navel. Now, why would that be the place? That's where your connection is. That's where the umbilical cord is from you to your mother, and all of what you need when you haven't even developed lungs to breathe. Remember, the baby is living but not breathing air because the lungs haven't been developed. So what is the baby breathing? Another fuel. If it's alive, it's got another fuel. So what is the fuel inside the amniotic sac? Amniotic sac. See, this is when you ask the real questions to get to... There's people who know this stuff, right? They're super intelligent, but they still haven't figured out that we need to know that because we're actually trying to jumpstart Earth, which happens to be an anagram for heart. Mm-hmm. We keep running in these circles, acting like we're confused, but it's time for someone to gain the ring. Now, this is the secret of the ring, and I know there's now 13 more minutes left in the conversation. Now, the reason why you see them so fascinated with this ring from the Lord of the Rings is that what a ring is it's called a cable or a cabal, because how a language is set up is it's set up as the first letter links itself to the last letter. So in English, the first letter is, of course, A, and the last letter is Z. That says as. As it means strong and straight, unbreakable in the ancient language. So you can see why they would connect these two letters together to make sure that this circle does not break. This language, this cabal, this ring. So what a lord of a ring is an individual who knows the complete meaning of at least one language. I'll tell you also, there's a Super Bowl. Some people have 4, 5, 6 different rings. And this is why the Merovingian in the Matrix says, I've sampled all languages, but France is just like, you see, he goes into that he goes into this conversation about how he knows every language. But he chooses to use French because he can say negative things in French, but it sounds like he's saying nice things. Mm-hmm. Now, when you understand that we just uncovered before that this English language was a derivative of the French language, then you see that there's many words that we think are actually positive words that we're saying to each other that are in fact not configured that way. Now, here's how that's defeated. When your actions become louder than your words. Until then, when you just talk, it's like rolling dice. But when your actions, which speak louder than the words as they tell you, go into play, then now that's where the actual creation comes into place. Now, here's the last secret. The reason why the Hebrew letter Yod, which means God to them, remember Y-O-D, G is a Y, as the I is a J, is God. So Yod in Hebrew means 10. 1 and 0. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. A binary code speaking. So what happens with Yod is, in Hebrew, they say it's the hand. And this confuses a lot of people. And like, well, how? This actually stops making them look at how these symbols may even connect, because it just doesn't connect. How is God just a hand? It's because everything is done with the hand. Mm-hmm. Everything is done with the hand. Like in this world here that we live in, I'm going to close the computer down when I'm done. I'm going to grab the doorknob. You see, like everything, when we touch someone, all of that is done with the hand. The hand is the beginning and the end to us. What we do with our hands and our action is going to ultimately tell how we fare in the universe. I'll tell you now, you can get space credits. There are other far more advanced beings watching this like it's a station. No higher beings are going to come and get themselves involved or graft themselves to this tree. Now, I'll explain this to you. Notice how a tree also has rings. Now, the reason why in the Sephiroth they liken it unto a tree and the planets and the dimensions unto a tree is because this is basically a family tree. So when some being comes that is not from here and comes into our family, they call that grafting onto the tree. And this is from an ancient term or even a most recent term of when you can make an orange tree also bear lemons and even other citrus fruits. All you have to do is put the branch onto there and graft it together. So notice how, and I'm wrapping this up, notice how in the Bible it says that we grafted ourselves onto the tree. There's actually a scripture that says this. So what they're actually saying to you is that there is a foreign level that is here now, meaning that the entity that is hazardous to this matrix, and it must be either schooled or quarantined. You choose. This is where humanity is at. And to school them, because many of them are from Mars, they're lords of war. So if you try to play with them with their own tools, you'll lose. This is why taking the guns away from Americans, this is only just to instigate more of the foolishness, because the guns are, man, these people have lasers. Like, you're not going to beat them that way. Put those down. You see what I mean? It's just foolishness. But how many years are soaked up in the foolishness, though? This is where we keep getting played all the time, is because 4 or 5 years we'll be spending thinking about the gun law. Someone's like even doing rallies and things like that, wasting all their time, never realizing, man, you're not going to whoop a Martian. Not with guns. So that's why America, again, is always used in that component of going to war. And until someone shows the world wholeness, it will be doing that. It can't switch off of a system without knowing what the next system is supposed to be like. And that's the last thing that I have to say here. What we are is human orgone. And for those who are familiar with orgone, it's a device that can be built that you just put in certain areas and it vacuums out many of the dark, stagnant energy, especially that's left in corners. So what happens is that when someone begins to cycle the truth inside of them, it starts to make their field higher. And this becomes like a helicopter. You can even actually come off the ground at certain points. But generally, you always feel this more inside than anything. So your vibrational frequency is actually picking up. So this is what happens. Now you're like this tornado, or as Dan Winter says, a conscious tornado steering itself. And when you walk around next to another person, it's just like one of those spinning things at a car wash that the car goes by and it starts to flap off a lot of the dirt.
Right.
Exactly. You start to wipe off a lot of the darker, stagnant energies off of the person's aura. So there's some that can do this silent. There's some that will do it with talking. All of those extremes in between there will exist. Everyone definitely has an ability. Be encouraged to study your gift. The activation is available on the website. We talk about mind, body, and soul. You have to triangulate this. You can't forget about either one of these if you plan on figuring out how you're spiraling in space right now. Meaning that mind, body, and soul, you need to figure out which of them is your stronger point and weaker points so that way you can build them. It's so easy to break down life when you can use that mind, body, and soul tool. So, like I said, I don't need to get into that right now because it's the end of the conversation. I want to say just thanks so much for allowing me to bring the message today because I've definitely been experiencing something in the last 3 weeks. I said I was wrestling a titan, and I knew that once I went through it, there was going to be still so much more expansion for all of us. And it's proved to be that. And I'll tell you many of the final tests that are coming before the tests are over and you're thrown right into the work. The final test is with manifestation power, not allowing at any point for your manifestation power to be utilized to begin to manifest things that become your nightmares. Now, let me explain this very easily. If you have manifestation power, but you still have fear, and you still can get scared, but you're still charged up over there because you're eating Ethereum golds and all sorts of stuff to boost up your frequencies, the only thing you're doing is magnifying that fear.
There you go.
These are all passive tools. The crystals, the meteorites, all of them behave according to what we tell them. This is why in the Bible it says, in all of them, all the angels bow down to man. In Talmud, all the essences and all of the numbers and letters, etc., the building blocks, served man and worked for him, except for one. But that one became the key. That's why the whole entire structure of this is just so symbolic. And that's why the Pope carries the keys, because it means that Sat, they say Sat, this is the highest truth. Now, Sat is Satan. It can't be any other thing, and Satan is Brahma. But the highest truth is not good or bad, like we think in childhood. The highest truth is that, excuse me, the highest truth in Sat is that once you understand what these beings really are and the roles that they play, then you equal truth. And the first one, because that's the Lord of this world, once you learn who that being is, then you understand all of the other beings. And
amazing.
Then more than any—
Sevan, I don't mean to cut you off. We've got about 15 seconds left. Leave us with something.
Well, that's it. I mean, I just want to tell everyone there's more to it as always. Thanks, just to True Frequency Radio for hosting the call. Wholeness.
It's been fascinating, Sevan. It always is, and we really appreciate all the work and research you're doing. Your website's really quick?
www.astroquest.com. You can find us there.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, right on time. We will see you every Friday and Saturday right here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, truthfrequencyradio.com. Kiss the one you love
right now, because you never know when the last time is going to be.
Yep, take the words right out of my mouth. We love you guys.